Well, welcome back, everyone. This is Charlie Pankey, Sierra Rec Now podcast. So excited to have you here again this weekend as we discuss the places, the people, the events, and even the gear that makes our Sierra adventures just awesome, right? I just got back. If you missed me last week, I was in the Yosemite National Park going backcountry, off trail, amazing route. There's more story coming on that. Love sharing that route I just did. But my guest today, I'm super excited. He runs backpackingsierra.com. He's also an author of many books. I've read several of his books. Paul Wagner is with us today. He's a returning guest, and he's a volunteer in Desolation Wilderness. We're going to talk some volunteer work. We're going to talk some backpacking trails. Stick around today. I guarantee you insider tips that you've never heard today. This is going to be a great episode. So, Paul, how you doing today?
Excellent. Great to be with you, Charlie. And always fun to talk about the Sierra and backpacking and getting out there into the wilderness.
Absolutely. Now, forgive me, Paul. I forgot where you live at. I know I've asked this before, but where are you calling in from today?
Well, I live in the Napa Valley,
The Napa Valley.
so that's where you're talking to me. But we also have a little cabin above Sonora on the way to Sonora Pass.
Oh, very
So
nice. So
one of the reasons I spent a lot of time in Immigrant Wilderness in Yosemite is that cabin.
yeah, Paul and I reached out together. I had done the Immigrant Wilderness 2-3 weeks ago, and you reached out and said, "Hey, that's my back door." I said, "Hey, let's get you back on the show. Let's talk wilderness stuff today.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah.
great." So that immigrant trip was very interesting to me because we went in on the Crabtree Trailhead, and that trailhead we went 14 miles. We used that backpack assist program through the horse corrals there, and
Yep.
so they took my pack back to Upper Buck, and I just got to hike in. Well, that was pretty rugged and hot territory, man. That it was 500 feet down, 500 feet up, 500 feet down, until you got to that third layer, and then it kind of hit all those lakes. But that was
Well,
a much harder trip than I expected.
Well, I always think of the granite in Immigrant as being kind of a bathtub, and they're just these ridges. And as you go,
Just really,
the ridges run northeast to southwest. So if you're
yep,
going west to east, you're going up one and then down one and then up one and then down one. And each one seems that, first of all, the granite is hot, reflects a lot of heat. And then each one, you think, gosh, they're getting higher. The nice part is you went in far enough that you didn't see that many people. Most of the people
yeah,
that
exactly.
go ahead.
Once we got to Upper Buck Lake, we saw the horse people there, and then we went off trail to Yellowhammer through a series of different lakes,
Yep.
which was one of the roughest days I've done this here for a while. Because I travel granite all the time. You do the same thing in Desolation. We see this where you travel granite and you'll run into these bluffs that are just tall enough not to fit into the contour lines of your map, and they make you turn around. And that day happened to be one of the hottest days I've hiked this summer. And I just mentally, it wasn't physically challenged, it was mentally challenged. It mentally
Yeah.
wore me out. I was in this big granite bowl having to backtrack 60 yards every time I picked a route because I just couldn't see the bluff. Or I'd
Yep.
get to a spot where I'm going, oh, this is going to be fine. And I couldn't get down that boulder. And I remember just getting there going, I'm exhausted just from working all day. Not because it's physically challenging, just because it was mentally just like I was off trail. You're not following a route. You're just trying to picking your way. And sometimes
Well,
granite
I
can
also
just be
find that
tricky
if
that
I'm
way.
picking my way along like that and looking for a route, I don't pay enough attention to hydration, and then you
100%.
start getting dehydrated, and it really gets ugly. I went to Yellowhammer from the other direction. I left
Okay.
Crabtree Trailhead, and then I took the southern route below Woods Lake. I went across Rosasco Pingree Big Lake,
Yep.
and then up from Big Lake to Yellowhammer, and I had exactly the same experience. That was one day. We went from I think Rosasco Lake to Yellowhammer,
Yep.
and then we thought, well, this is okay, but I think we'd like to get up that bluff to get up to Carl and Layton and back up onto the main trail.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we went up and up and up, and we just could not find a route up that granite. And same experience, everything's going fine, and then there's a cliff or there's a thicket of manzanita you do not want to whack through. But the nice thing
Exactly.
was that at one point, as we were doing that, I looked back down, and below us was little 5-acre lake.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
And so I said to my wife, and I both saw that lake, and we said, well, screw this. We're going to just work our way back down to that. So we camped at 5-acre, had a lovely time. And after spending some time on my topo maps, I figured out a route up to Red Can, and then we could get out of there. But uncharted,
Yep.
to a certain extent, uncharted territory, and lots of fun to poke around out there.
Yeah, I someday I'll go back again. We walked out that from Big Lake up to Pingree, and then that
Yeah.
canyon between Pingree and Rosasco. That was a hot, desolate place too. It's like, wow, this it was just, it was kind of like, it'd been scorched by the sun type place.
Well,
Like,
it's
man,
just
this is
solid.
a rough.
It's solid granite. It must be like
Yeah,
200 acres of just plain granite. There's not a tree in sight. And you
not
think,
anywhere.
man, this is like a desert without the sand. It's just bare rock, but
100%.
also
Yeah.
spectacular. Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. The people we did meet, everybody that we had met had been out there for 4 or 5 days, and they'd been coming for years, right? So it's obviously a playground. Once you experience, you just can't get enough of, because there's so many different lakes. And like, we
Yeah.
absolutely loved. In the afternoon, we took lunch at Carl's and spent the time swimming and enjoying Carl's Lake all by ourselves. It was just a beautiful spot, great
Yeah.
swimming hole, and
Yeah.
scared a deer out, the whole etc. But so many different places that. Yeah, my
Yeah.
whole goal of that trip was to see 15 lakes. I mapped it
Uh-huh.
out. I'm going to go photograph them. I'm going to experience them. I'm not going to stay a
Yeah.
long time, which a
Yeah.
lot of people tell me, you're wasting time. You could spend some time there, but I, be in the magazine, and I wanted to accumulate as much knowledge as
Yeah. Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was quite a push, but
Well,
dude,
in
now you
Carl,
spent. Go ahead.
I was going to say Carl's Lake, that's what, half a mile from the main trail, maybe a mile from the main trail.
Exactly.
Easy
Yeah.
navigation, easy to find. Nobody goes there.
No, nobody, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
matter of fact, the horse crew, when I was telling them my route, they were telling me to skip Carl's and go to Red Can,
Right.
and Red Can, it seemed just a little more difficult for me for whatever reason in my map, where I was asking, nah, I'm going to go to Carl's instead, and I just loved it. I
Yeah.
never did go to Red Can, so
Well, the
I
reason they told you
skipped it
doing a
instead.
red can instead of Carl is I think Carl's doesn't have any fish and red can has fish.
That's probably 100% it, because they cater to a lot of fishermen up there. That's probably 100% right.
Yeah.
They're just talking to fishermen all the time. Now I see that you have spent quite a bit of time in Desolation Wilderness this summer, and I just saw a post on your website about some of the hidden lakes in Desolation. I happen to be a big fan of those hidden lakes myself. How's summer been? Were you up there as a volunteer all summer, or were you up there both volunteer and just being a hiker?
Well, we are given some options on how we volunteer. And I've been volunteering up there for about 5 years. I've been volunteering McCabe Wilderness for maybe 8 or 10 years. And then I
Oh
also
wow.
volunteer Sierra National Forest and Stanislaus National Forest. So any
Okay.
excuse to get out there, Charlie.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you're a volunteer, you're given a choice. And most people, I think, choose to either, there are two primary activities for the volunteers. One is called solitude monitoring, which means you don't
Mhm.
even identify yourself as a volunteer. You just hit the trail and you keep track of everybody you see. So we have a sense of who's using which trails. And then the
Mhm.
other thing a lot of people do is called the trailhead naturalist, where they just
Mhm.
stand at the trailhead and answer questions for people who are going to go hiking in there. But
Yep.
I prefer to go in the backcountry. So
Yeah.
a lot of us are asked to adopt a zone. So I adopted Zone 39 when I came back. I was
Nice.
out of the country when I came back. Zone 39 was the only zone that nobody wanted, so I took it. No trail to it, so it's
Nice.
all cross country. Um,
Yep.
but I go in. I've gone in there through Echo Lakes. I've gone in through Ralston Peak, two
Okay.
different ways, three different ways, and I go back and spend 2, 3 days backpacking and hiking around on the trails, checking out campsites. If there are campsites that are too close to the water, I try to restore that area. If there's trash
Mhm.
in the area, I pick it up.
Yep.
But I'm also wearing a uniform. I'm answering a ton of questions. And this summer, I actually got a chance to use my first aid kit.
Oh, really? Wow.
Ran into a couple of women who were hiking out at Aloha Lake, and one
Okay.
of them was clearly moving very slowly. And I asked her what was going on, and she said, "Well, I sprained my ankle." And I said,
Wow.
"Well, I have a wrap in my first aid kit." And she said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." And I said, "It's just sitting there. It's free to use. It'll make it easier for you." And she said,
Yeah.
"Well, okay." And then I said, "So do you know how to wrap an ankle?" And she said, "I have no idea." And I said, "Well, the only thing I know is the way they used to wrap my ankle when I sprained it 50 years ago when I was playing soccer. but I still
Yep.
sort of remember that. So I wrapped it up, had a few feet left over, and just then this group of 4 people came by, and I said, "Hey, any of you people have any medical expertise?" And one of the
Uh-huh.
guys comes over and he says, "Well," he says, "I'm an emergency room doctor." And I said, "We got a
Perfect.
sprained ankle here." And he says, "Well, I'm actually more used to dealing with massive hemorrhaging or cranial injuries. I'm into serious heart attacks." But he took a look. He says, "That's pretty much the way I'd wrap that ankle. I think you're good." So I
You're good to
passed
go.
my test.
Exactly. Perfect. That's very good. That's a little interesting because I'll never forget the first time I went through desolation training when they told us that to really be careful about trying to save people's lives or especially swimmers because there's a lot of responsibility to that where I remember them saying just you can give them the band-aids but don't put them on it's like but the natural instinct is to be somebody who helps. That's why we volunteer is to help,
Right,
right? And
right.
I've handed out band-aids and stuff before, but I've never had to do anything super serious. I'm like you. I like carrying my shovel, putting the shirt on, answering questions all day, but I get out super early. Like I usually leave way before people. I'm only catching people coming off the trail, and then I work way 14 miles
Uh-huh.
out there, and then I hike back in the afternoon and just answer questions all day long. So I'm a little
Oh,
bit like
yeah.
you, but I took the summer off. I couldn't do desolation this summer because of my schedule. I had a whole lot of travel going on and some more backpacking stuff around the Sierra. So I took the summer off. I felt bad about it, but I'll get back to it. I didn't know they had volunteer programs in the Multnomah and the National Forest. So that's maybe something I should look into from other districts as well.
I think most regions have some sort of volunteer system. In McCabe, well, you know that Desolation, heaviest use of any wilderness area in
Yeah.
America.
Yep.
The volunteer program is fairly tightly regulated. There's specific things you can do and can't do, and all the rest. By the
Yep.
way, if you asked for first aid, you're covered by the Good Samaritan law that says if you're just trying to help and you do it in good faith, they can't sue you.
Oh, that's good to know.
McCabe, a little less organized. They have a chart of things that needs to be done and a chart of trails that need to be hiked, and you're pretty much it's up to you as to which trails you go and how you do it. Stanislaus, in general, has a coordinator who picks specific projects to work on. And then I've been
Mm-hmm.
working on Mariposa Trails with a guy by the name of Bill King, who's got a huge government grant. It's not a lot of money, but it's a lot of hours to try to
Okay.
restore all of the trails west of Yosemite in the Sierra National
Oh,
Forest. So all that
oh, how
area,
fascinating is that?
it's called Mariposa Trails, but it's all those areas
Uh-huh.
between Mariposa and Yosemite. He's eventually trying to connect all that up. One of the things he's trying to do is connect up the South Fork of the Merced River. There are old trails through there, and he's trying to connect it from Wawona all the way down to Mariposa.
Oh, wouldn't that be just amazing to find those
Yeah,
trails again, right? To have
yeah,
access to that, because one of the things we're doing, especially since COVID, is we're dealing with. There's a lot of people in the forest right now. There's a lot of people taking advantage of getting outside, which leads to some trails being well overpopulated. The trail out
yeah,
from Echo to Aloha right now is I'll go out there on Saturday afternoon, and before noon, I'll have 400 people. That's just like that's
yeah,
not built for 400 people in a 3
yeah.
hour period, right? So it's like you want to spread out, get out in the wilderness, see other areas. So I mean, the things I just got back from Yosemite National Park. We did about 40 miles, about 34 of it were backcountry wilderness stuff. And my cousin from Baltimore's never backpacked before, so I about killed him going over 10,000 feet, which I feel bad about. But what I don't feel bad about is we didn't see a human being for about 36 hours.
Right.
So there was this
Yep.
window. It's like you get complete solitude. It's you and the coyotes. It's
Yep.
you and your own mental thoughts. With the waters rushing off down the canyons, and it's like what's funny. Talk about first aid. I actually took a fall, Paul.
Uh-huh.
I was coming off this hill and I hit a rock and it moved on me and my stick didn't hold and it punched me in the face and I took a big tumble in my backpack, which is scary because where I was at, I was probably about 3 miles from Echo Lake and
Right.
back in the middle of nowhere. I was going, no
Yeah.
one, you wouldn't have been able to find me back there by myself. Luckily, I didn't get hurt. My cousin was with me, but it was like, yeah, those things happen,
Yeah.
But again, that's why I go. I want to be out there by myself and not see many people. So
Yeah.
building
And
trails like that gives people ability to spread out.
it's
So
not hard. It's not
no,
hard. That I posted a bunch of photos of lakes on my website recently, the lesser known lakes, and a bunch of them are, four of them I visited on one of my last trips to Desolation. Um,
okay,
One of them is within 100 yards of the Lake Aloha Trail. Nobody ever goes there.
yep, yep,
One of them is about a half a mile from the Lake Aloha Trail. Nobody ever goes
mm-hmm.
there. Two of them
Yep.
are one of them is actually within sight of the Lake Aloha Trail. Nobody ever goes
Trail.
there.
I know exactly what you're talking
And
about.
then
Yeah,
one of them is within a quarter mile of Lake of the Woods. And again,
yep,
nobody goes there.
exactly.
All you have to
Yeah,
do is get off the trail a quarter of a mile, and you will be amazed at how few people you run into at that point. And of course, everybody, when they get to the lake, they want to camp right where the trail hits the lake, which is where everybody
yeah.
else
Don't do
camps.
that.
And it is so easy to walk an extra, 300 or 400 yards and find a place that's
Yeah.
so much nicer.
Let's talk about that real quick because I know that's something. It's always been frustrating for me. It's like I understand the walk up to a lake and go, man, there's a campsite that I can see it's already here. It's right next to the water. What a beautiful spot. I'm just going to take this one, right? And yet the wilderness rules and the structures that they have out there aren't really meant to be punishing to you, but they say 100 feet from the water, 100 feet from the
Right,
trail. If the
right.
trail goes right between the water and at 50 feet, why not set a camp up? People go, I go, well, there's lots of good reasons. One, think about other people's wilderness experience. When you get to a lake, you want to see wilderness. You don't want to see other people, right? So backing up helps out a little bit. But two, animals. If you're afraid of bears or animals at all in your camp, stay away from the water because that's where they're
Yeah,
going at nighttime. I guarantee it. So,
yeah, yeah,
staying right there, just puts you in harm's way a little bit, puts the animals at risk, and conflict does happen. Um,
yeah.
I don't know what your feelings on that. I know Tamarack Lake, for example, up in Desolations, people are famous right on the water. It's like, move your tent back. Come on, man. You can back up
Well,
from the water, and
you'll
everybody
be
can enjoy the
happy to
water during
know.
the day. And yeah,
You'll be happy to know that the last time I was at Tamarack, which was 10 days ago,
yep,
there was nobody camped right on the water. Yeah,
sweet.
to me, there's an old rule in backpacking. You never take the first campsite you find because those are the
Yep,
places where the people who don't know what they're doing, they see the lake, they kick off their backpack and they say, I'm done. And all you got to do is
yep,
hike another 5 minutes and you'll find better places. But Tamarack is a good
yeah,
example. Last summer there was a real problem there. There's a huge campsite. Well, there is a huge area right on the water between the trail and the
right
water.
on the water.
And the trail
Yep,
goes maybe 50 feet from the water. So anything between the
yep,
trail and the lake is not a legal campsite. And I went
yep.
up there middle of the summer and I spent a couple of hours putting rocks, logs, sprinkling pine cones, anything I could find to fill in that space and let people know this is not a campsite.
That's great.
And I
Thank
went
you.
up there the following week, and
Right.
nobody was camped there, but they had cleared off a site right next to it and they were camped there. So I
Yeah.
gave them the same lecture, but they were camped there. I couldn't, I don't, as a volunteer, you're not allowed to throw
We're
people off
volunteers, right?
campsites or
Yeah.
any of that
We're
stuff.
just giving education, right? So,
So, but I told them, I said, listen, would you do me a favor? I said, this isn't a legal campsite. You know why? We explained, and there's one other reason beyond, as you say, the other people's wilderness experience and the animals is water
yep,
pollution. When
yep,
people camp on the water, stuff gets in the water all the time. And no matter how
yep,
careful you are, you're dropping stuff on the ground. Things happen. I know I clean up campsites all the time. There are always little
yep.
bits of things that people forget. I
That's
packed out
whatever
a
it is.
tent. I packed out a couple of other things this summer that people left. So, but I told them, hey, fix this campsite so it looks like nobody should camp here. They did. And I went back this summer. I was back there over Labor Day weekend, and those two
Uh huh.
sites still looked pristine and unoccupied and had been
Fantastic.
restored. You're starting to see a little grass grow up in places, and
Yeah.
sometimes it works.
That's awesome. There's a little place on Avalanche Lake that is, fires in the middle of the island for years. You can just an old fire ring.
Yeah.
I have multiple summers done the same thing, carried dirt and rock in from other areas and tried to clean all the black gone. I don't want a fire here. And I'll come back
Yep.
next summer to be a fire there again. It's like, okay, I'm going to do it again and throw all the
Yep.
burnt wood, elsewhere. And I unfortunately I haven't been back there about 2 years, so I don't know how it's doing. But I know what you mean. There's just those spots that just continually become people's favorites that are not legal camp spots, and they're not.
Right.
Fires aren't allowed in Desolation, so why are people doing fire in the first place? But
Not since
I've also,
1990.
but since not exactly, it's not even close. I kind of funny to say that I also know a spot near Avalanche Lake that's a bear cache, and what I mean is where the bear takes the backpacks they stole. I've picked up multiple torn up backpacks in the exact same spot. So this bear takes them to this spot, shreds them to pieces, and then I have to clean all the mess up, hoping the bear doesn't come back while I'm there. I've done that multiple times, same spots. Like I don't know where he brings them from, but he takes them there. That's his home. But yeah, you never know when you're going to see that. Where
Yeah.
else have you been? Where have you been? Let's talk about some fun stuff. Where have you been backpacking this summer for fun? I mean, what's your go-to route for you and your wife to go play this year? We got a little delay here, Paul. So what I'm asking, think about just having some fun this year backpacking. Did you and your wife get out and go any place fun for backpacking this year?
Well, we've done a couple of different things. We always try to go someplace new. So
Yep.
we drove down to Kearsarge Pass, down
nice.
just north of Bishop. And we actually just day camped there, but we hiked up to Kearsarge Pass and we hiked up to Robinson Lakes, had a really nice time down there, just car camping and hiking. Kearsarge Pass, one of the really spectacular. And then my wife's been having trouble with elevation. And so we decided we'd try to do an easier trip this summer. And so we went to Little Lakes Valley, that Rock Creek area.
Yep.
And we hiked into Chicken Foot Lake, which is sort of at the end of that valley. And then we camped there for a couple of days and did day hikes out of that, trying to make life easier. Beautiful area,
Very nice. Decent
fishing in Chicken Foot. And again, the trail, there's a trail to Chicken Foot Lake where it hits the lake. There's this huge, heavily used area for campsites. And we walked around to the other side of the lake and we had our own spot, nobody within a quarter mile of us, up on a bluff overlooking the lake. And I couldn't resist. I found one illegal campsite there right on the water. So I went ahead and fixed that one too.
Cleaned her up. You're better than I am. My hiking buddy who knows I do Desolation, and I'm a famous Karen knocker over and stuff, and he'll give me a hard time sometimes because we'll go to a different wilderness. I'll be hiking, I'm not on duty, and he go, "Well, you didn't clean that up." I go, "I'm not on duty today. I'm out enjoying myself." So unless it's like a bunch of trash I can stick in my pockets, which I do all the time, but I don't spend time cleaning up campsites out there. But I got to tell you this other trip I did in Yosemite this year. You would really like it. I finally made it to McCabe Lake, and I've been wanting to go there for years, right? And there was still too much snow on the pass to go over the don't do a pass or don't call a pass way over to Roosevelt.
Right.
So instead, we stayed at the 10,000-foot line and then cut across Shepherd's Peak there, and went around the Shepherd's Peak to Roosevelt. And up there, I found two meadows that you can't see from anywhere. They're just hidden in the trees. There's two beautiful meadows where water is literally gurgling out of the ground.
Nice.
You see like these softball-sized holes where water is just bubbling out of the ground.
Yeah.
And it was so pretty back there. I don't want them to ever put a trail back there, but if anybody ever has a chance to go off trail at McCabe Lake and go, instead of going up to Upper McCabe and going over the, I think it's called Don't Be a Pass,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Stay at Lower McCabe and then just stay at that level, go across the ridge. It's an extra mile of hiking, but it's absolutely stunningly beautiful up there. You don't have to go up or down. You just kind of stay at 10,000 feet the whole time.
Yeah.
And it just wraps right around the mountain. It's pretty unique. It's a neat environment out there. I get another place where I had coyotes surround camp, and that both my backpacking trips to Yosemite this week, we had coyote experiences where there are hunting parties came through our camps.
Wow.
Absolutely cool experience.
Wow.
You're laying in my hammock at 1:00 in the morning, all of a sudden coyotes are yipping all around you. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Not afraid of a coyote, but hunting packs is kind of fun.
I went to McCabe Lakes by going in through Virginia Lakes.
Oh, yeah, that's a
And
great
that
way.
drops you down
Over
into
Summit?
Virginia Canyon. And then we went down to
Yep,
McCabe Lake that way. And then the way I got to Roosevelt was I went in through Glen Allen and I just
yep,
followed Kness Creek all the way up. And it was funny. I was talking to a ranger about that trip. And I was saying,
yeah,
you follow the creek up, and then there's a point where you just head straight up the granite and you go over the lip. And I said, and
mhm,
when you get on top of that granite, she said, that's one of the greatest views in the park because you get up
yep,
on this granite and behind you is Kness and Shepherd's and all Shepherd's Crest.
yep.
But in front of you, you can see everything all the way down to Half Dome.
Absolutely. So this route I took gets you to that crest. I just
Yeah,
came from a different direction, so we kind of met out at
yeah,
the same spot. I have never thought about going up the creek from Glen Allen. That's a great route. I mean,
yep,
that's some beautiful canyon country back there that you're gonna
it
cross through.
is. And easy, you cannot get lost. You're following the creek.
Exactly. Follow the water, right?
Yeah,
It makes it nice and simple. That's cool. We were up in a Cold Creek Canyon, and we stayed behind a big granite boulder, and we climbed up on the boulder at nighttime. Could see over that entire valley, and I was able to point out to my friend, "Here's the route we're going to take." And yeah, that's a really pretty canyon country back. I'll have to think about that for
yep,
off trail again. That'd be
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, that Virginia Lakes access point, that and Twin Lakes access point are both ones I've been up there, but I've never come all the way over, and I
Uh-huh.
need to do that. 'Cause I just saw the route from Twin Lakes that goes out to the Benson Lake that has the beach.
Yeah,
So they
yeah,
go Benson, they go over Twin Lakes, come down
yeah,
into the Matterhorn, and back over to Benson in a big loop. And I go,
yeah,
that would be a loop
yeah. We
I need
did
to put
that
on
the
my
other
to do
direction.
list. So
Be prepared when you do that when you'll see Boy Scouts because that's almost exactly a 50-mile loop. And lots of scout
yeah,
troops want to check off their 50-mile hike. So they do that loop.
gotcha. That okay, popularity. That makes sense. Makes sense. So, hey, real quick, let's switch. We're running on a half hour. I want to switch over to your books real quick because I've read two of them now. How's the book series going? You have any new books coming out? Do you want to maybe share with the audience some of what you're doing with your book series and what that's all about?
So it's lots of fun. As you know, the main character is a wilderness ranger who works in the Immigrant Wilderness out of Pinecrest Lake there, the
Yep.
Miwok Ranger Station. And the latest is also the last, Charlie, because it came out
Oh,
in
is it?
June. Came out in
Okay.
June, and it was actually number 5. There are 8 books in the
Okay.
series, and I'd written 4 of them, and I got halfway through this one, and I said to myself, or the book said to me, this is the last book in the series.
Oh,
And I
wow.
realized where this book was going, and I said, well, wait a minute, I got other stories to tell. So I stopped writing, put it to the side, wrote books 5, 6, and 7. And then when I finished book number 7, I said, okay, now it's time to finish that book that I started as number 5. So it's number 8. And it
What's it
kind of
called?
wraps up the series. It's called Running Downhill.
Okay.
And it's the first one in which Dan is not working. The book does not involve him working as a wilderness ranger. He is simply
Okay.
out having an adventure and things happen to him.
Okay. Very
But
cool.
it's fun that, Stanislaus National Forest carries these books in all of their offices, all their gift shops. Calaveras Big Trees has it in their gift shop. Bookstores up in the Sierra have it. It's a lot of, and what's fun is because of the website, I occasionally meet people hiking out there who look at me and say, "Hey, you look like the guy who has a website up there." And some of them will even talk to me about, and how's Dan Courtwright doing these days? I read one of his books. I want
Exactly.
to know. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. But I haven't stopped
Very fun
writing
read.
mysteries. Haven't stopped writing mysteries because, I started writing these books because my daughter was living in Argentina and she said she didn't have enough to
Mhm.
read. So I
I
wrote her
remember
a
that.
book thinking it was just a sort of a lark. And she wrote back, she said, "Dad, this is really good." And then her sister read it and said, "Dad, why don't you write one for me?" So now every Christmas I have to write a book for my 2 daughters. And they're both human rights attorneys. It's not like they're 8 or 10 years old. They're grown-ups.
Yeah.
But I stopped writing the last one. The last one in the Dan Courtwright series came out in June, and the
Right.
next series takes place where I really live, because I spent 40 years working in the
Oh,
wine industry. So the
there
next
you go. A little
one
Napa Valley, huh?
is wine and the Napa Valley. Yeah.
Oh, very fun. Well, very good. I sure enjoyed the first two. I was trying to think of the second tiles where it was the first one I got was the rock one, the big rock one where the rock fell off and
Falling Rocks, right?
falling
And
rocks,
the
and then
second
the
one
other
is
one.
Earth.
But there you go, there it is. Yeah, so very fun, quick reads, easy reads, but lots of mystery too. They're a fun read, so I highly recommend them. You can get them on Amazon too, right? You have them available on
Yep.
Amazon and on
Oh
your
yeah,
website.
they're on Amazon.
Yep,
Yep. Yep.
that's very
And
good.
Bones of the Earth, that takes place right there. If you remember, they find some human remains up above Yellowhammer Lake. So you were
Yellowhammer, yeah, exactly.
in the zone there with
I
your
was in the
latest
zone, right?
trip.
That area where the bluffs are at and stuff.
Exactly. Well, and all of these books incorporate stuff that I've experienced or know up there, So yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's what I recognize reading is that you're talking about certain boulders and angles of the granite type thing in your writing. It's like, oh, you've stood here before. This is a picture in your mind that I've literally been on this spot, right? That
Yep.
it's a lot of fun if you like to see her. Definitely. I got a pleasure of interviewing a young gal who wrote another book this summer on the Sierra, Michelle, and she's kind of the same way. She writes from her experience of I was on this river and doing this. Now hers is more of a documentary style of telling her story out there
Right.
doing it. But she was amazing how many things happened to her that were not really that good or were really kind of mysterious. So the Sierra is
Yeah.
full of mystery. When I think about your book, sometimes they had that series on. I want to say it's Hulu or one of those TV. They have a Yosemite ranger that's doing backcountry
Right.
investigation. Hasn't got the greatest reviews in the world, but I watched one episode of it and I go, hey, this reminds me of Cartwright
That's right. That's
and
right.
your
Well,
story.
even Dan's name comes from one of the reservoirs up there, up there by Lake Thomas Edison and Wishon Reservoir is Courtwright Reservoir. So that's where Dan
Cartwright,
gets his
exactly.
name.
Is Cartwright the one you can take the boat across? The
No,
PCT will take
that's
the boat
Thomas
across?
Edison.
That's Thomas
That's
Edison.
Thomas
Okay,
Edison.
yeah.
Yeah.
Haven't been up there yet. That's an area of the Sierra I'd love to go explore. Haven't been in that region yet. So
Long drive for you.
it is a very long drive for me.
Yeah.
That's why I haven't been there. But I've mapped a route out from Thomas Edison over to is it Bishop Pass? There's
Or
a route in
Mono
there that
Pass.
I've mapped
It's
out to go.
Mono Creek
Yeah,
goes
that
right up there. I think it's only like 21 miles between Thomas
exactly.
Edison. I mean, there are people who have day hiked that.
Yeah, I wouldn't day hike it, but I'd do a couple days. It'd be fun.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff in between that's really beautiful.
Exactly. It looks like a really beautiful part of the country. Maybe in the
Yeah,
future,
yeah, yeah.
future plans, I'll make that trip. But hey, we're on our half hour. I want to be respectful of your time and our guest time. We always try to keep our show at a half hour. I do have a real quick promo I need to run for the Carson Valley, our home base for all of our adventures and our sponsors here at the show here. Let me run that real quick. And once again, we want to thank the Carson Valley. We love living here in the Carson Valley. It's a great place to base camp for all of our Sierra adventures and a great place to visit. We have a lot of fall festivals. Candy Dance is coming up here soon. Take a look at Genoa. Candy Dance, one of the great festivals of the region. So, Paul, as you know, I end my show with 3 questions. You've answered these questions before, but let's remind the people. We'll give you some different options here. Let's pretend your bag is packed and you get to go backpacking this weekend. No volunteer work. You're just going to go out and enjoy the Sierra. Where you're going and why?
If I can get a permit, I might do someplace in northern Yosemite. Fewer people, beautiful area. Yeah, and this time of year it's spectacular.
Very, very spectacular. You might even just walk through the Hoover Wilderness to Yosemite. That might be the way to do it, right?
Yep.
Or
Yep.
immigrant to Yosemite in the Cherry Lake region too. So very good. So after a weekend of playing in the Sierra, what is your go-to food? Are you stop for a milkshake and burger at Walker, or where are you stopping for food at?
We recently stopped at the Old Priest Grade Cafe outside
Great
of
call.
Groveland, which is a wonderful
Yes.
place run by a family where they have a really long history of quite famous climbers and things. In fact, when you get a key to the restroom, it's this huge climbing bolt
Oh, is it really?
attached to the key. But I have to admit, when I come out, I am more hungry for fresh salad and fruit than I am for hamburgers or pizza or anything. So, yeah, but Old Priest Cafe
I
was
should probably be more that way. I
a
tend to
real
be,
hit.
gulf the pizza and burger down. So yeah, that's a good call. The Old Priest, great. That's an old hidden route that people, some people can't drive, but us that know the region, that's the route, man. That's definitely the route. All right, so
Yeah.
last question: gear. What's your favorite piece of gear that you don't like leaving home without when you're out backpacking or traveling Sierra?
Well, I have to put in a good word for Henry Shires and his tarp tents. We recently
Oh
we
yeah,
bought one of his three-man tents for my wife and me, and I think the three-man tent weighs under 3 pounds.
fantastic.
Lightweight, really dependable. And I called him. I said, we've used it for 65, 70 nights now, and the zipper's starting to zip, but it won't close things. What do I do? And he sent me a little video on how to fix it. I had an ember land on the tent and it burned a hole in the tent, and he sent me a little patch kit. When you call him, when you write him, it's Henry himself who answers the phone or answers the email. Great equipment, and I swear by it. I actually bought myself last year for Desolation a one of his tents that I think weighs a little over a pound and works just perfectly.
Say the brand name again. I'm not familiar with his.
It's Henry Shires, and the tents are called tarp tents, TARPTENT. And he's a guy who
All
did
right,
the PCT, made his own tent. His wife then did the JMT, used the same tent, came back and said, "Honey, here's what you need to fix." And
great.
started as a small cottage industry. They now make 25 different kinds of tents for all kinds of backpackers. Great guy, great service, lightweight, serviceable. I'm all in.
I'm gonna look him up and see if I can get him on the show. That sounds really awesome. I'm
He'd
gonna go
be
look that
great
up.
to have
So
on the show. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Paul, it has been a pleasure to speak with you again. I hope your last book was great, and your new series in Napa Wines is going to be great. Thank you very much for all the volunteer work you do and all the trail work that you're putting in to help us all enjoy the Sierra as we go out. And wish you and your wife the next great adventure that's on your plate, whether it be in Eastern Sierra, Immigrant Wilderness, or Desolation, man.
Thanks, Charlie. It's always fun to talk to you. It's just fun to talk to anybody who loves backpacking as much as we do.
Exactly. So very good. Well, we'll talk again soon, and we wish you the best this fall. Have a good trip out wherever you're at. If you're listening today, thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the show. Leave us a comment down below. Tell us what your favorite backpacking trip is in the Sierra. We'd love to hear about your stories as well. Everyone has a story to tell in the Sierra, whether you're a volunteer, whether you're just somebody who comes up for the weekend, or just something that you just can't get enough of. We want to hear your story as well. Leave us a comment down below. Let us know your favorites, and let's share the Sierra together. Have a great day wherever you're at, and God bless.